The wealthier you looked, the more they took. And the innkeeper had already calculated exactly how to ensure you couldn't leave without paying every penny. A merchant rides into a Norman inn at dusk. His clothes mark him before he speaks. Fine wool, silver clasp. The horse is good stock. The innkeeper sees all of this before the man's boots touch ground. He's already calculating, not what the room costs, what the merchant can afford to lose. Medieval inns had no reason to compete for your business. They weren't competing for your business. They were the only option for miles. No choice means no negotiation. You arrived exhausted. Your horse needed stabling. Night was falling. Bandits owned the roads after dark. The innkeeper knew all of this, and he knew your ceiling. You'd pay anything not to sleep in a ditch. Every thread in the bedding, every ounce of meat on your plate, every candle measured to the inch. None of it was hospitality. It was a pricing strategy built around your desperation. And we're going to follow that strategy, cost by cost, through every hour of a single night in the wealthiest room a 1070 English inn could offer. From the moment you arrive at dusk to the moment you settle accounts at dawn. Using manorial records, Domesday Book data, and archaeological evidence from excavated inn sites. Not guessing. Tracking. The bed you paid for. The fire that wasn't included. The ale that came in measures smaller than you thought. The breakfast that appeared on your bill before you ordered it. This isn't about what hospitality looked like. It's about what captivity cost when it wore the mask of shelter. Norman England had no rule book for what happened inside that building. No royal decree set a fair price for a bed. No court would hear your complaint about a rancid meal. The innkeeper answered to no one. That absence of law wasn't an accident or an oversight. It was the operating condition. And every innkeeper understood what it meant. That absence meant the price was whatever the room could extract before you walked out. Except you couldn't walk out. Not really. Not at dusk. Not with tired horses and 20 miles of dark road behind you. This was not a marketplace. A marketplace requires alternatives. What existed instead was a captive, a legal trap with a warm fire inside it. The man holding the key had spent decades learning exactly how much desperation costs. So, what does wealthy mean in 1070? It means you can afford to sleep alone. The room is 12 feet by 10, stone walls, packed earth floor covered in rushes that haven't been changed in a week. A single shuttered window, no glass. Oiled linen stretched across the frame to let in light without letting in the rain. That linen costs extra. The bed is rope. Hemp rope laced through a wooden frame, tensioned tight enough to hold your weight without sagging to the floor. On top of that, a linen sheet. Not wool, not straw ticking. Linen. In 1070, linen bedding in a rented room is a luxury item, and the innkeeper will tell you so. He'll stand in the doorway and recite what you're paying for as if reading a contract aloud. One chest for your belongings, with a lock. 2 tallow candles, each 4 inches long. The candles are measured, burn through both before morning, and the replacements come out of your purse. The door has a bolt on the inside. That's not hospitality. That's inventory control. You lock yourself in. The innkeeper locks everyone else out. What you brought with you stays yours. What the inn owns stays visible. This room costs 4 pence per night. The average laborer earns 1 penny a day. You are paying 4 days of labor for 12 hours of access to a space you do not control. And that's just the room. The fire is separate. The food is separate. Stabling is an additional charge. And the room rate is the smallest line on it. Your horse costs more than you do. At a well-appointed inn in 1070, stabling a single horse runs 2 to 3 pence per night. The laborer earning 1 penny a day works 3 days to cover what your animal consumes in one: feed, water, a stall with straw, a groom who may or may not actually groom, each one itemized. Each one billed separately. The innkeeper doesn't own a stable out of courtesy. The innkeeper owns it because it is the most reliable revenue stream on the property. You cannot leave your horse in the street. You cannot leave it untended. You have no choice, and he knows it. But the horse is only the beginning. Now look at what you carried inside with you. Your trunk, your coin, your documents if you have them. The inn offers a locked storage room, a bolted alcove really, for an additional fee. Refuse it, and your valuables sit in your room behind that bolt you control. Accept it, and the fee is fixed by the innkeeper, not negotiated. There is no competing storage across the road. Here is what no traveler says aloud. The theft that happens without the security fee often involves the same hands that offer it. The horse and the trunk are not conveniences. They are levers, and the innkeeper has both hands on them. The meal is served at a fixed hour, not yours. You sit in the hall. Pottage arrives, thick, grain-based, stretched with turnips or leeks. A trencher of bread, already staling. Salted fish if the coast is near. Weak ale, watered down just enough to avoid complaint. This is what you paid for in the room rate. This is what everyone gets. But the innkeeper's watching. He notes what you finish, what you push aside, whether you ask for more bread before the bowl is empty, whether you hesitate when the ale tastes thin. Every gesture is a price signal. Because the base meal is not the transaction. The add-ons are. Spices, pepper, cinnamon, mustard, available on request. So is wine. So is a second helping of meat, if there is meat. The innkeeper does not volunteer these. You must ask. And when you ask, the price is not posted anywhere. It is set in real time, adjusted for how you asked, what you wore, how you arrived. A man who asks confidently pays less than a man who hesitates. A woman traveling alone pays more than a man with armed retainers. There is no menu. There is a system. And tomorrow's bill has already started, because the night is not done charging you yet. The bill does not stop when you stop eating. It continues through the night. After dark, the room costs more than at noon. Not because the room changed, but because you need things now that you didn't need in daylight. Candles burn down. The fire cools. Your body produces waste. These are not inconveniences. They are revenue points, already priced, waiting for you to feel them. A replacement candle must be requested. A servant carries it up. There is a charge. If the fire dies past midnight, it requires a refill of fuel. Another servant. Another price set in the dark where no witness hears the number spoken aloud. The chamber pot does not empty itself. A servant must be called. And that call has a cost. And the cost doubles if you call twice before morning. Even the bar across your door, the wooden beam that keeps the room sealed while you sleep, is not included. You pay to have it dropped into its bracket. You pay for the feeling of safety. Cold and darkness and the basic needs of the human body are not problems the innkeeper solves for you. They are the mechanism. The room is not a shelter. It is a structure designed to make you spend while you are horizontal, vulnerable, and alone. And here's the thing worth pausing on. Every one of those charges was invisible until you needed it. That's not carelessness. That's design. Because a man who knew the full cost before he committed would push back. A man who discovers each cost in the moment, tired, cold, in the dark, pays without argument. The architecture of discomfort was the pricing model. Now the question is, who else was in the building with you while you slept? The bed is not rest. It is a product, a rope lattice stretched across a wooden frame, On top of that, a sack filled with straw, compressed, damp at the edges, smelling of the last body that slept there. On top of that, linen. The linen is shared. Not shared meaning communal by agreement. Shared meaning the man before you used it, and the man before him. And the washing happens when the innkeeper decides the washing happens. Fresh linen costs extra. That is written nowhere. You discover it at the moment you ask. The wool blanket is heavy and it is warm and it reeks of lanolin and smoke and something older than both. It is the best thing in the room. It is also crawling. Fleas are not an accident in this system. They are the baseline condition. The room was never clean. Clean would require investment, and investment reduces margin. The mechanism holding all of this together, you will not complain. Because complaining costs something too. A man who makes trouble at the inn finds the next inn already full when he arrives. Word travels faster than horses on a road that has only one road. You pay for what you choose not to say, and the innkeeper knows exactly what you are choosing not to say. What he is less careful about is who else made that same calculation in the room beside yours. Dawn does not liberate you. It resets the meter. The first thing you need in the morning is water. Not for drinking, for your hands, your face, the basic ritual of a man who still considers himself civilized. That water costs extra. A boy carries it upstairs in a clay pitcher, and the fee is small enough that arguing about it feels beneath you. That is by design. The amounts are always just below the threshold of your dignity. Breakfast is included. The innkeeper will tell you this. What he will not tell you is that included means yesterday's bread, dense and turning. Fresh bread exists. It is available. It costs you separately. It arrives warm, and you will pay for it because you have been awake for 30 minutes, and already the morning is extracting its toll, and you are tired of being the kind of man who eats bad bread. Then comes the cruelest mechanism of all. Checkout is not a time. Checkout is a decision the innkeeper makes about you. Stay past his judgment of sufficient rest, and a half-day charge appears, not negotiated, simply announced. He controlled the night with darkness and a locked door. He controls the morning with a clock only he can read. The room is releasing you. But it is not finished with your money. 14 charges. You don't know that number yet. That's the point. The innkeeper has been adding since the moment you arrived. The candle, the hay, the second cup, the fire that burned past midnight, the boy who carried your bag up the stairs. Each charge was small. Each one felt reasonable in isolation. That's not coincidence. That's architecture. And now you stand at the door with your horse waiting in the road ahead, and somewhere behind you a man with a ledger is doing arithmetic you cannot see. He will read you a number. You will feel it land. And in that moment, tired, late, already half out the door, your only move is to pay or to argue with a man who lives here, knows everyone, and will still be here tomorrow when you are gone. The bill is not a summary. The bill is the final room, the one you didn't know you'd rented. 4 pence for the room, 2 for the stable, 6 for the meals, broken across 3 sittings you didn't choose, priced individually, each one recorded. 1 penny for candles, 1 for the fire you barely used but couldn't ask them to remove, 2 pence for servant calls, every knock on the door, every cup refilled, every time someone answered when you called out in the dark, and 3 pence for something the ledger calls security and hospitality. A category so vague it can hold anything. A number so round it was clearly decided before you arrived. 19 pence total. A skilled craftsman in 1070 England, a carpenter, a blacksmith, someone who works with their hands and actually knows something, earns roughly 2 pence a day on a good week. You just spent his wages for 10 days in a single night. And the innkeeper doesn't flinch when he says it. Why would he? He said it before. He'll say it again tomorrow to the next man, standing where you're standing, bag in hand, horse already saddled, road waiting. The number is not a negotiation. It is a declaration. This is what you owe. This is what leaving costs. But here is the thing that should stop you cold. 19 pence is what the ledger shows. What the ledger doesn't show is where that pricing structure came from. Who set it? Whether any of those individual charges were legal. Whether there was supposed to be a limit. There was. And almost no one enforced it. Let that number sit for a moment. Because on its own, it sounds abstract. A fee. A cost of doing business on the road. But the Domesday Book surveyors were meticulous, and what they recorded tells a different story entirely. 19 pence in 1070 buys 38 loaves of bread. That is a laboring family fed for over a month. It is 9 days of wages for a farm worker who starts before dawn and finishes when the light is gone. It is a full month of rent on a small cottage, walls, roof, a fire, a door that locks. One night in the wealthiest room at a market town inn cost the same as a month of shelter for someone who actually lived there. And the innkeeper knew this. He set the price knowing this. The Domesday assessors who catalogued Norman England's wealth found that inns in market towns ranked among the highest earners per square foot of any business in the country. More than bakeries, more than smithies. The room you slept in last night generated more income per yard than nearly anything else standing on that street. This was not accidental success. It was structural extraction. The traveler could not negotiate, could not leave, could not cook his own meal or water his own horse without passing through the innkeeper's ledger. Every service was a toll. Every toll was compulsory, which raises a harder question. Was this one inn, or was this everywhere? It was everywhere. Every market town, every royal road, every crossing point where travelers had no choice but to stop. The inn was not an anomaly. It was the system, and the system had a logic. Controlled dependency. The innkeeper did not need to threaten anyone. The threat was architectural. You were tired. Your horse was spent. The next shelter was 12 miles through unlit road. The price was whatever the innkeeper decided it was. And Norman law, written by men who understood leverage, gave him the right to set it. The wealthier you appeared, the more you paid. Not because you were cheated in any way you could name, because the price was calibrated. The innkeeper read your horse, your cloak, your retinue, and adjusted accordingly. This was not intuition. It was a skill passed down, refined, profitable. And above you, the Lord took his cut. Above the Lord, the crown. Every bed in that inn was a node in a revenue chain that ran straight to the top. This is what Norman England looked like from inside a single room. Not castles, not conquest. A tired man at a table, eating bread he did not bake, paying a price he did not choose, in a building he could not leave. Pull back further from that room, and the shape of the whole system becomes clearer. That inn was not an anomaly. It was a blueprint. Every mechanism inside that room, the graded bedding, the metered fire, the portioned meal, the bill that assembled itself while you slept. Each one was borrowed from a larger logic. The same logic that governed the mill you passed on the road, the bridge you crossed to reach the town, the market stall where the grain was weighed by someone who owned the weights. In 1070 England, access was the commodity, not goods, not labor, access. Access to shelter, to roads, to water, to safety. And access was never free. It was always held by someone, and that someone always collected. This is what feudalism actually was at ground level, not loyalty, not protection. A layered system of tolls on human necessity. You needed to move, you paid. You needed to eat, you paid. You needed to stop, you paid. The Lord did not need to threaten you. Necessity did the work for him. The innkeeper understood this perfectly. He did not invent the system. He inherited it, entered it, and operated it with precision. His guest room was not a room, it was a checkpoint. And every traveler who passed through it paid, without negotiation, without alternatives, without ever quite understanding that the hospitality and the trap were the same thing. The room smelled of tallow smoke and damp straw, and the faint metallic trace of coin-changing hands in the dark. It was warm. It had a bolt on the inside. It cost 19 pence. And for one night in 1070, it was the only place on the road that would take you. What the innkeeper could legally seize from a traveler who couldn't pay, that answer is darker than you'd expect. Legally hold, legally due to someone who couldn't pay. That answer is not what you expect. Leave it in the comments. That becomes the next Reconstruction, and it goes deeper than you think. Not the medieval life of kings and battles, the medieval life of transactions, leverage, and the quiet machinery of control that most history simply forgets to name.